right? Recently, I took part in a Zoom, well, you could say a Zoom concert, and the topic was emancipation in a pandemic. But if we really embody the meaning of emancipation and freedom, going on the road in a nice dandan and all of that is nice, but nothing can stop us from celebrating emancipation in its true sense, commemorating the ancestors and what they did, those who went before, who gave their lives for our freedom today. Listen, I miss the little thing because I like to dress up, but we can still celebrate it if we really focusing on the meaning of emancipation. Me talking too much this evening because you see who sit down in studio with me. I ain't have much to say. The topic this evening is the African woman post-emancipation. After emancipation, what we really saying? Where are we in society? Not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but the world at large. But of course, they say you have to mind your business home first, right? So we're going to take a little commercial break. We're going for a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going straight into the topic, yeah? Stay with us.
Your Olorisha charitable organization, unification of people worldwide. We exist to serve humanity. We help those in need. We help with clothes, food, shelter, and so much more. Today, we urge you to help the helpers by contributing to JMMB bank account 007 7000 17168. Thank you for helping us to continue helping those in need of help. Call us at 464-4264. Ashe.
Back inside the Feminine Drive. We are here in the Gael, yes, with my esteemed guest, Dr. David Mohammed. And how are you this Friday evening?
I am well, thanks. It's a pleasure to be on. Greetings to all the viewers and listeners. And I have looked at your program before, and it's very moving, very motivational.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to be on.
Yes, it's my pleasure to have you. You're actually the first guest in studio after the last lockdown.
Oh.
You're actually the first guest in studio. I don't think I could do a virtual interview with you.
Right.
I needed to soak up some of that positive vibes, man. So David, we're talking about the African woman post-emancipation. Mm-hmm. Now, this show, The Feminine Drive, really represents all women.
Yeah.
I do my best to represent all women. But now, I am not going to apologize for focusing on the African woman.
Yeah.
And where are we in society? Post-emancipation, we know the whole slavery story, and I could only imagine what women went through. I wasn't there. I could only imagine. And then after that, we know about the freedom fighters, Betty Shabazz, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, right? Just to name a few. These were real, as my grandmother would say, batlaks. Women on the field battling. And they did a lot. They did a lot coming up the road. We're in the year 2021. A lot has been said and is being said about the African woman. We know what we for. Look at them. They're dressing half naked. They're straightening their hair. They're this, they're that, the other. Tell us, where are we? From a historical point, even emotionally, spiritually, because I could leave you to run with the show, Tell us.
Well, and let me thank you again for the topic, for the subject matter, which unfortunately has not been given the kind of merit and credit that it should have been given over the last 200, 300 years, because it was the black woman who has carried us while maintaining her role and responsibility within the family,
Yes.
while the man was taken out. And from that time to now, much and most of the credit for the achievements and accomplishments of us as a people have been given to men when there has not been sufficient acknowledgement of great black women in history. Now, of course, this has been the case with women in general based on male hegemony and chauvinism, but it's specific with the African woman. I mean, as you would know, feminism is a philosophy, a sociological perspective that seeks to establish, define, and defend human and civil rights of women and to promote ideas of gender equality. But black feminism in particular adds the element of discrimination by race and ethnicity to the male hegemonic and chauvinistic dominance that the Western world, in particular, and the whole world by extension, is characterized by. In the 1980s, there was a sister by the name of Clenora Hudson Weems, who would coin the phrase African womanism, which was an extension of black feminism, but it included a closer microscopic analysis of the reality of family. Right. Because a lot of our destruction as a people has been centered around the fall of the black family.
Correct.
So there have been these ideological and sociological perspectives that have looked at the issue of our women, but clearly not enough has come out of the conversation.
Has been attributed.
Right, and I see that as part of our responsibility today.
And, you know, I'm following you there, excuse, and you're correct. And the African woman does not operate independent. We have the black man there with us, the African man. So his troubles automatically becomes our troubles. As you said, the capsule, it's so nice, the family.
Yeah.
And when we have the downfall of our family, I hardly hear people say it was the man's fault. It's always that woman, it didn't train the children properly. And the mother this and the mother that, and where the mother? Right? Yes, you will have in some circles they're asking about the father. But for as long as I can remember, and you just cemented there, the emphasis was always on the African woman. And it's not a matter of defending or making excuses, but I think I want to say here this evening, the African woman has been bearing a lot from ever since.
Yeah. And you know, even on terms of this modern day context and the persecution of the woman, I am a member of the Nation of Islam. And I will admit to you that when I embraced Islam, or when I became interested in Islam, around 1991, I was not looking for religion per se, as I was looking for black consciousness. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X in England, and I became fascinated with his teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then I went in London, a video presentation of Minister Louis Farrakhan. Now, I had just come back from Trinidad on holiday.
Okay.
And my girlfriend back then had just become pregnant. And I went to hear Minister Farrakhan on this video. And I'm expecting to hear African history, African consciousness, black economics, which he always talks about. But on that day, he was talking about abortion.
Really?
And he was talking about the responsibility of the black man to be a father, a husband, a provider, a protector, a maintainer, and that we judge the standard of civilization of any community, any people, any society by the woman.
Correct.
So you don't look at tall buildings, skyscrapers, highways and roads. You look at how the woman is treated in a society, and that will tell you the level of civilization. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that 75% of his teaching was for the black woman. 25% was for the black man. He said, because the mother is the first teacher of the children. And he said, when you educate a man, you educate an individual. But when you educate a woman, you educate an entire nation, because the mother is the first teacher of the children, and a nation can rise no higher than its woman.
And she's a natural nurturer.
It's something that if she does not do, she has to resist doing it. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad also said, anywhere you see a woman who is being referred to as no good, or she's ridiculed for being in a degenerate condition, he said there's always a no good man that is linked and connected to what may be described as a no good woman.
Can I ask you to repeat that again, please, Dr. Muhammad?
Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, anywhere where there is a no good woman, there is a no good man responsible
Viewers,
for her condition.
I hope
somewhere.
you all heard that. I hope you all heard that.
You know, and even, so when you look at our culture and the fact that men produce and manufacture entertainment products that degrade and disrespect the woman for the purpose of amusement, that is a fallen people.
Yes.
That's a lost civilization. And us in particular, I mean, in our community, we are the only people who do that to our women, and we see value in it. And it is also, I would say, what I believe us as black men must be the least tolerant of. We don't believe in violence. We don't believe in conflict and confrontation. We have our own force as men, yes, but we're not a violent and aggressive people.
But the African people?
No, I'm talking about our organization.
Oh, okay, Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when it comes to men who are violent against women, that is when a major consideration of punishment is put under review for men, because it's considered to be completely unacceptable. And, our women are not appreciated as they should be. And again, reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, and a lot of us would miss that message. That's a major factor in our struggle, respect for our women.
You know, you said earlier, you said that where there is a bad woman, there's a bad man.
Yeah.
I'm putting it in layman terms.
Yes.
And I mean, a lot of men would probably disagree with that, right? But as you said, it is the responsibility of the black man to support the woman, to help her along that journey. Whilst everyone is responsible for his or her behavior, we know that if we are going to operate as a unit, then we cannot, for example, a marriage, there cannot be any segmentation. Persons can operate independent of themselves and say that the woman is bad and you are so immaculate.
Yeah.
Then, somebody has to be impacted on somebody negatively. And as you said, if the woman is so bad, then what does that say of you? It's similar to people staying in toxic relationship and could identify who is toxic, but you are still there. So that speaks volume. You are still there. So going back to the African woman, do you think the years of abuse by society, by other races, all the ills spoken against the black woman could have transcended up to today, 2021, and give rise to women who very low on self-esteem, they don't know themselves, they do things to please society and who they think society wants them to be?
Well, that absolutely is the case. And there are so many things in our past that have been toxic and traumatic that we still not have yet courageously confronted enough to the point where we have solved them. And one of those issues is, of course, slavery. During enslavement, the black man was used as a stud horse to breed slaves to be bought, sold, traded, and rented as economic commodities. The black woman was repeatedly raped by the white slave masters. We were also denied the right to get married. Professor Tony Martin spoke of an old black slave on a plantation in Diego Martin who fathered as much as 80 children.
What they call Covine now, Covine Road, I think,
Around
that
there.
area, yes.
Yes. Now, there was a European anthropologist by the name of Melville Herskovits whose writings on African communities in the West has become so authoritative in modern day cultural anthropological studies. And he tries to link the structure of the black family in the West to family patterns in contemporary Africa today. But only we could really revisit and re-examine the crimes against humanity that were committed against us that have had that effect on family life. A Jamaican slave owner by the name of Thomas Thistlewood kept a diary of the sexual perversions and horrifically brutal sex crimes that he would commit against his slaves.
Wow.
And
Kept a diary.
yeah, he kept a diary. Now, the thing is, a lot of those kinds of acts from back then have become almost socially acceptable in some underworld cultures today.
Yes.
But it shows where it started from, how destructive they can be, and how intergenerational those ideas can be if they're passed on from a past generation that considered them abnormal to a contemporary generation that considers them almost socially acceptable. And then we now face the tail end of that particular destruction, and it complicates our lives so much because the destruction of the black family in particular has affected the transfer of intergenerational wealth, the legacy of a family name within a community. The absence of the father is a major factor behind juvenile delinquency and young men going astray, finding gang leaders as male mentorship leadership figures. And it has created a cascading effect of destabilization, which now manifests in our school performances, on the workplace, in business, and in so many other areas and aspects of society. So it's poisonous at its root, and if we don't address it, then we run the risk of continuing it and considering it to be normal.
Through generations.
Yeah.
Now, David, if we want to go back a bit, to come out of the diaspora a bit,
Yeah.
and let's go to the motherland. Families, it's an important thing. Community activities. They base a lot of, everything is community based. And some of that came here. I visited Grenada in 2018 and saw where they're cooking by the roadside in this big pot, and people would come and, you know, very community based. We had a lot of that here. I don't know where it went, but everything was community based. You're having a wedding in the community, you didn't have to get an invitation. People come in the wedding and they bring in stuff. I remember that when my mother got married, right? Because that is how it is in a lot of Yoruba-based nations like Nigeria, West Africa, that kind of thing. Also, you talk about women and they were forbidden to get married, that kind of thing. Western culture imposed upon us the what we call, and I'm talking for us to understand, one woman, one man. A lot of families, a lot of women were ostracized because we know what happens in that situation. In Africa, we have what is called polygamous relationship. The family was taken care of. Children were taken care of. Farming, we know the whole package with that. You think that the Western culture imposing that type of you know, lifestyle where they restrict the man to seeing about one woman, and mind you here, ladies, it doesn't necessarily mean a sexual relation. It doesn't necessarily mean it, because as we hear another woman, we go crazy, we go ballistic. But you think because that type of family structure was severed from us and we were put in this mold to you know, this sort of segregated mold, you think also that could have contributed to the breakdown of the family? Because I tell you this before you comment. Okay, long time, as my mother would say, my grandfather or my father had children outside. Sometimes when the man die, you find out you have a brother here, a sister here. He took care of everybody. It's only sometimes when the man die, you find out who is who. But everybody was taken care of. We come today, we supposedly live in this life, one woman, one man. And look at the problem in the African race. I'm dealing with the African race. I'm not dealing with other race today. You think it's because that type of family structure was severed from the original type of family structure was severed from us, that could have also give rise to the support of family?
What I would say to that is not every polygamous marriage or family is dysfunctional.
True.
But not every nuclear or monogamous family is dysfunctional either. Likewise, not every polygamous family is functional. And likewise, not every nuclear family or monogamous family is also functional. So it more depends on the social dynamics in the relationship itself, more so than the structure. Of course, what tends to happen in Western societies is they attempt to interpret polygamy, which is mainly polygyny, which is a male with more than one wife. They would look at a polygynous situation and try to interpret it through the lens of Western romance. And when that is done, you exclude multiple other elements that altogether form a social reality. So a Western analysis cannot truly describe or explain or properly analyze or evaluate that kind of situation. And then the hypocrisy of it is that Western society would scorn, mock, and ridicule African polygamy or even Islamic polygamy or polygyny.
Yeah.
While at the same time, they would practice more monogamous infidelity than, say, an African culture would celebrate polygyny or polygamy. And then they have an entire law set in place to cushion the effect and impact of their infidelity, which has become Western culture. Infidelity is Western culture.
You think it's a culture?
Of course it is. Of course it is Western culture. There's no question about that. But I have to, that you mentioned the motherland. And I want to establish the point that the black woman in Africa has always been great.
Yes.
There was never the kind of Western feminine liberalization movement that took place after World War I, the early 1900s, or in the 1970s. There never had to be a mass movement for the rights of women in Africa. That happened in Western societies. Because in Africa, we go back to the 5 great queens, starting with Queen Hatshepsut.
Hatshepsut, Egypt.
Yeah, who was a female pharaoh.
Mm-hmm. Ruled the longest, I understand.
Yeah, longest ruler, 5th leader in the 18th dynasty, a leader that if she were present in the world today would have eclipsed probably any other leader of any country that we have, up to Queen Nefertiti, who was actually a theologian. She had an impact on the scientific understanding of religion and influenced, literally hundreds of thousands, even millions of men. She was a leader in that capacity. Probably the most famous of them all would be Makeda, the Queen of Sheba. Mm-hmm. Because not only is...
That's the woman who tamed Solomon.
Yes.
Well, so they say. That's the woman who tamed Solomon, boy.
Right, because she not only is she a historical figure, but she's actually mentioned in both the Bible and the Quran. As a matter of fact, the Holy Quran has 114 chapters, and every chapter begins with the phrase Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, except chapter 9. But it still has that phrase appearing 114 times, because it appears twice in chapter 28, where a letter was written to the Queen of Sheba, which began with the phrase. So she has gone down, probably the most famous woman who's ever lived.
Queen of Sheba.
Yeah. And then you have Queen Nefertari, again, I mean, leader of unparalleled proportion. Queen Nzinga of Angola, yes, was a leader of a country for 3 decades. And she spent that entire 3 decades fighting against the slave trade. There are some among us who love to promote that rhetoric that African people sold other Africans into slavery. But you have people like Queen Nzinga, who battled against the Portuguese, destroyed slave trading posts, raided slave ships, until the Portuguese went to her to negotiate for peace. They literally went crawling on hands and knees trying to get her to curtail her military forces, just like Queen Nanny in Jamaica. Queen Nanny in Jamaica, among the Maroons, again, national hero, the British went cap in hand to her because of her leadership, her military astuteness, their refusal to back down in their fighting against the slave trade, and they went to her to sign peace. So in Africa, you always had great black women of that kind of stature. And that tradition had kept the woman empowered. And I mean, in all of the African traditions, in Trinidad, according to Professor J.D. Elder, we have basically, well, he identified 8 African tribes that came here: the Yoruba, Igbo, Koromantan, Rada, Temne, Congo, Fulani, Mandingo. But there's also the Asante, who each had rites of passage that entailed men becoming men by showing their honor to woman.
To the woman, yes.
And that a man cannot be a man until he is
basically knows how
showing
to
that
treat
humility
a woman. Yes.
to women as well. And you know, when I speak to school students, which feels like it's been so long now, but I think the last schools I would have spoken in would have been for Black History Month in November 2019. Did Marabella. I think Marabella would have been one of the last ones. But, you know, we always tell the men, the young men, the male students, I say to them, the worst thing that you can do as a young male, the worst thing that you can do is to be violent against a woman. Because when a man is violent against a woman, he shows that he is not completely a man at all. And there is a void or a vacuum in his own masculinity that he's trying to compensate for through these hyper-masculine behaviors by being physically aggressive
so he tells
towards
himself,
a woman.
Yeah, that's his way of control.
Yeah, and making up for his
lack of
shortfalls in other perceived departments of masculinity. But at the same time, when I tell the young men, the worst thing that you can do is to disrespect a woman, and that you must respect all women, I say to the young women, the same way that I'm telling the boys that they must respect all girls, I'm telling the girls, you must respect yourselves.
Yes. Because
you never get a second chance to create a first impression.
David, that's a nice point for us to run for another break.
Yeah.
We're going to take another quick break. And if you haven't shared the live yet, do so. We have valuable information passing here, right? So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Ijo Olorisha charitable organization, unification of people worldwide. We exist to serve humanity. We help those in need. We help with clothes, food, shelter, and so much more. Today, we urge you to help the helpers by contributing to JMMB bank account 007 7000 17168. Thank you for helping us to continue helping those in need of help. Call us at 464-4264. Ashe.
Welcome back inside the Feminine Drive. I am your host, Empress Aje, and we have with us this evening Dr. David Mohammed, and we are speaking on the topic, the African woman post-emancipation. And we know of all the ills of our foreparents, those who give their lives. We are celebrating Emancipation Day on Sunday, and we come in now in the modern time, and we are dealing with the African woman. You know, they like to pong we. Right, with this, with that. Look at how we dressing these days. African woman not strong anymore. They're not holding the home together, you know. So this is the topic we are dealing with. Before we went for the break, I spoke about giving your knowledge to the school children, and Marabella School was probably the last you did in 2019, so. Yes. And telling the young boys, do not disrespect the women, but also telling the young ladies, respect yourselves.
Yes.
David, it is probably difficult and confusing for a young African female to respect herself in society in the year 2021. She has the media to deal with, the internet, perceiving what she thinks or who she thinks she should be, because, you know, they're watching at everything now on the net. I think the job of a parent now is very difficult, guiding young females. Then you have the other side when you try to speak with young women about how they should dress, how they should take care of themselves. You have those other groups that will say it's people's rights to dress how they want, to, you know. So I think it's a bit of confusion going on in the minds of our young people, our young African male and female. Sometimes I want to believe this thing is by design, you know. It's not by happenstance. It is by design to confuse us. How then would a young female navigate through all that, filter through all that to respect herself?
Well, it is centered around the idea of value and how much all of us value ourselves. You know, some of the psychological studies, for example, on prostitution show that in most cases, women who turn to prostitution were at some point sexually abused. Of course, this is not in all cases, and there are many arguments that could be put forth about economic circumstances and situations that may drive a person to do that. But in spite of the economics, there are moral considerations. So a lot of the psychological studies say that women who turn to prostitution have had some history of sexual abuse themselves. And the way that it is attempted to be dealt with is that a woman who is raped or sexually abused is victimized in a way that she is devalued by a man. A man removes her humanity, her personality, her virtue, her character, and reduces her to an object for his physical pleasures, right? The woman who is a victim of that kind of abuse understands the process that she is being used in. So the only way for her to cope sub-psychologically, to deal with the fact that she has been devalued, is to devalue the sex act itself. We all know instinctively that the sex act has an element of sacredness to it. I mean, in the scriptures,
yes,
that's how you got married.
Yes.
You know, I mean, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, well, not Jesus, but Abraham, Moses, Noah, David, Solomon, Lot. How did they get married? Was there a priest or a bishop or some pastor?
Exactly.
You know,
all this sort of thing we go through.
They had relations.
Yes.
That's how they got married. So it's understood that there's an element of sacredness in the sex act, but someone who is abused through the sex act now has to devalue it in order to regain their own value. So if, in my mind, I no longer consider this to be something sacred and I can do it freely, then I have rescued my own self-worth. And then, so a woman would say, well, I could sell this, I could resort to prostitution. It's a similar kind of concept with our people in how we address psychologically, how we address the issues, say, of poverty. So you might see a very poor person with a very expensive gold chain. And he's telling himself, well, I don't see myself as worth much, but that gold chain is worth a lot.
Yes.
So if I can get it and put it on me, that now increases my value.
Yes. Right. Or a car.
Exactly. So all of these are sub-issues that we wrestle with subconsciously from a psychological point of view. But going back to the young girls and, encouraging them, we have to send a message to them of their great value. One analogy that I share with the students is that you could go into a shoe shop and try on an old pair of slippers. And if it doesn't fit, you take it off, throw it aside, try on another one. If that one doesn't fit, you keep trying them
until
on
you
and throwing
find
them
the right
aside.
fit.
But you cannot go into the jewelry store and be just trying on all of the expensive diamond rings.
No.
Because the diamond ring is in a case, it's on a cushion, it's locked, and there are security forces that will be alerted by burglar alarms if anyone interferes with it. But the black woman is by far more valuable than any diamond in any jewelry store anywhere. So where are her security forces? Where are the burglar alarms? What are the danger detection systems that will bring us to her defense? That should be the black man by nature. He is supposed to have as his default setting in his mind when he thinks of the black woman that she is a queen, mother of civilization, goddess of the universe, queen of the planet Earth. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who is my teacher, said the black woman is the means through which God reproduces his own image and likeness.
I believe that.
Minister Farrakhan said the womb of the black woman is the workshop or the laboratory of God where he recreates, when it says in Genesis, God made man in his own image and likeness. History, anthropology, geography, biology, genetics all prove that African people were the first people on earth. Therefore, the black woman was the first woman on earth. And the fruit of the womb of the black woman is God reproducing himself in physical form as a duplicate or a replica. Now, if I understand that, then I will not be abusive towards her. I wouldn't be disrespectful. I would not devalue her.
Correct.
But more importantly, she has to grow up in a home with a father who thinks like that and a mother who is the recipient of that kind of respect and treatment, so that she will know by the time she comes of age that she is worth a lot more, that she deserves a lot more than how some men may be thinking or idly planning to treat her.
But
so
you remember, the black man
change.
is also damaged. That same black man that you would like to act a particular way towards the black woman, remember, he has his issues as well. He is fighting with trying to heal. He himself is lost. So you could only give what you have. And you cannot give what you don't have.
And this is why there's a teaching, a consciousness that must be shared. We have to be reformed. Around the time when I became a father, 28 years ago, going on 29 years now.
What?
It was only after hearing Minister Farrakhan that I developed that perspective on father. I might not have gotten married at the time that I did. August the 9th will make it 28 years.
Listen, women don't forgive when you...
I know.
Yeah, women do not forgive you when you ain't have them thing correct. Take your time and...
I did that deliberately. But 28, I got married when I was, 21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. But I would not have gotten married unless I was in possession of that consciousness. And again, I tell a lot of the students that I speak to as well, that a lot of us, and again, this is in our culture, and if it comes up again, you can remind me to address the issue of child marriage.
Right.
But a lot of times we delay marriage And young people would say, well, okay, I want to graduate first.
I ain't ready
from school.
yet.
Right,
I
that's
get my
it.
house and yes.
Right.
Yes.
Graduated from university. Let's get married now. No, well, I want to get a job first. Okay, so you get your job. Well, no, I want to get
I want to
paid.
get a car or
Yeah, I
something.
want to get a car. I want to get a house.
Yes.
And there are all these delays. But each of those are milestone objectives for a young adult. Getting a job or a degree or a house or a car. But each of those short-term or medium-term goals or aims are much more easily achievable with partnership. And when I say partnership, I'm
Proper
talking
partnership.
about male-female balance that
Yes.
complete the nature and the whole of what humanity entails. So you take both of the best parts of that kind of genesis of what eventually becomes a family, and you will be able to get either a house or car or a degree or whatever it is much more easily
True.
with that kind of partnership. It's like, I say it now, but when I first got married, I mean, it's funny because I was 22, just moved back to Trinidad, and again, being a
You
student.
was in love.
Yeah, I was. yeah. But that's a whole discussion in itself.
By itself.
But being a young adult, and again, a student of Minister Louis Farrakhan, who used to teach and still does that debt is slavery. So I had a fridge, secondhand, bought it for like $700. Never used to make ice. You want to keep something cold, you put it in the ice section. Anything in the regular section wasn't working at all. I had a stove that used to, I don't know where this black smoke used to come from. We used to take a broomstick to keep the oven door closed. I mean, everything I had, but I never owed anyone a cent. Never was in debt, never went to the bank to take a loan, never borrowed anything, never begged anyone for anything. And over the last 2 decades or so, every time I replaced it, I've never sold anything to anyone that I have replaced for myself. So if I buy a fridge, a stove, a TV, a couch set, I give that away.
Right.
In gratitude, because I say I could never pay back Minister Louis Farrakhan for the
the
wisdom that he
teachings,
taught
yes,
me.
yeah.
But what I could do is pay it forward. Now, our young people are trapped in this kind of zone that marriage is something that you get into after a certain stage when it really should be a preliminary stage. I lecture for 2 tertiary level institutions, but I was guest speaker at a graduation for UE Roytech in 2017. And there were approximately 600 students graduating. I am not exaggerating.
That's a big class.
Yeah, no, but that's the whole
Okay,
institution.
everything
So
together, okay.
approximately 600 students. And in my estimation, I mean, I didn't count, but in my estimation, if there were 600 students, at least 510 of them were females. And this is for business, management, administration, supervision, human resource management. Now, if that trend continues 10 or 15 years from now, that's where the leaders in society will be. Meanwhile, I go into the prisons, used to a lot more, but I've addressed full prison populations. There are almost 6,000 men in prison. I address the entire women's prison population. The entire women's prison population back in 2019 or 2018. That was 102 women.
Versus
Think about it.
6,000
102 women in jail versus close to 6,000 men in jail. And then here you are at a university graduation, close to 80% of the graduates
Females.
women as opposed to men. And then now, something very unfortunate that has been brought to our attention a couple times is that men feel insecure with the success of the woman. There was one particular case,
was
this
coming
one
to
was
that
really sad,
question.
of a young girl who, she decided to pursue further education and so on. And she had a boyfriend. And, he felt like he was being left behind, but he burned her books. And even though we can look at that and say that's a terrible situation, what it is really is it's a reflection. There are other men who might be in the same situation who might not go that far.
Right, but they feel the
But-
same insecurity.
Right, but the same insecurity
yeah.
is there, and it would have other byproducts that would be toxic to the relationship. So it's a very delicate kind of situation.
It is. And I was getting there, about to ask you all the achievement. Now, if you go back even to the primary school, when you look at the SCA results, the girls been doing better than the boys. Not today, long time, by far, right? You look at CXC, CSEC, up the road, all the different examinations. And then, of course, that manifests in the working world, where the women do better, etc. You just gave an example of a Reutering graduation. And it spills over in the home now, where in a lot of homes today, you have the woman making more money than the man. And that emasculates the man a bit. And we have problems because, to be honest, some of our women, we ain't easy neither. We making the money, and as a man say, see all your woman mouth boy, we can say things that can make men feel really badly. And that in itself right there is a real, what should I say? That is an abscess that needs to clean up. Some blame it on society. They've been pushing women's rights, women this, women that, and now that there is this surge of women being the best that they can be, and economically and otherwise, we complaining.
Well, let me say this. Yes, we know that, as you say, some of the women aren't easy, right? I hope they're not listening right now, but I was counseling a couple. No, one particular couple that, but I was counseling a couple.
Oh, okay. Because I'm listening on the phone.
Right. And it was, well, there have been many situations like this. It's not just one group. But of a man who has had a lot of previous relationships and even coexisting relationships with other women while he's with his woman. And so you're in a forum where you're discussing this. And this man had said to me in the presence of, his partner. Now, it was out on the table that he has been with a multitude of women over a period of time. Right, we understand that. And he was saying, but, I don't understand her, my partner, because her speech can be so poisonous and hurtful. And she says things that injure so badly. And after listening to him, I said to him, I said, you cannot have your cake and eat it. Because you cannot, on one hand, have been in all of these experiences with so many women, but on the other hand, claim not to possess the wisdom about women that should have accompanied all of that experience.
Right.
So you can't say you've had 20, 24, just hypothetically, 30 partners over, say, a 30-year period, and you don't know
learn nothing.
that the woman will say something
things,
which to her is like a defense that is equal to the impact of maybe physical aggression from a man. No, you're supposed to learn all of that. And that is why, again, and I advocate for our young people, I know it will sound extremely old-fashioned, but our young people getting into relationships must enter into some kind of system of courtship. You don't meet some... So with our socio-economic reality, many of the men are looking for sex. Many of the women are looking for money. So they go to a dark place that is very loud. You find out someone's name for the first time, didn't even hear properly. And then you end up having sexual relations that same night. The man has adorned himself with expensive jewelry, and he puts a bottle on the table that costs about $100. She sees that's money. Meanwhile, she's dressed herself, revealing parts of her body that are silhouetted, outlined in her clothing. The man sees that's sex. So the two come together. But after relations, if there's a phone call 2 or 3 days later and she says to him, I'm pregnant, first thing that's running through his mind is, but if I met her on that same night and that happened, then what could have happened the night after? How do I know it's mine? Now, that is a very poisonous way to start a relationship, more or less a family. Right, so we advocate courtship. In a court, you have to present evidence.
Yes.
And you call witnesses. And the information is presented before a jury who, after carefully considering all that's said, will pass a verdict. And then that verdict will be overseen by a judge who passes a sentence. So that's a whole process. You cannot have a court case where there's a judge, jury, verdict, consideration, attorneys, defense, prosecution, and all the information not come out. We would have thoroughly investigated whatever information there is that we need to know. It would come out somewhere during that process. So with courtship, now you have a chaperone, you have other individuals who are involved, the witnesses or jury members will be family members, relatives, and other people, so that by the time that marriage takes place, there would already be some degree of familiarity.
Some sort of foundation.
Right.
Yeah.
But that has been missing within our community as well. And what you tend to find is, I mean, I'm not condemning it, but it is peculiar for us to be a community of, say, 800 people. And, you know, I have a child for my best friends, or I have a child with my best friend's wife. My best friend has a child with my sister and my other sister. It's odd.
It's a funny position.
Right.
But you know, people...
But it erodes the foundation of our communities. And again, it has to be addressed.
Talk about courtship. It probably might have people saying coach. A long time thing, you know. I have to laugh because for me, I find courting somebody, that's the excitement. People don't talk anymore, they don't interact. Let's not blame COVID. COVID is fairly recent. People don't go out. They don't get to know each other. And everything is done on this.
Yep.
Everything is done on this. So a relationship conducted on this. People hardly want to talk. They WhatsApp. They do everything on this. And one young fella tell me, he say, court, if she's staying too long, I move on. They move on. You staying too long to give it up, they move on. So David, this is the what we're dealing with in society. However, the black woman still remains a pillar and an integral part of the family. We're battling against a lot. We really battling against a lot. Acceptance even, right? We still have people around us who totally accept us for who we are, and we're trying to please them. Yeah. We have that still going on. They find you too African, you're too black, you're too this, and we try to please them because we want to fit in today's society. Earlier on you said the African woman was always great in Africa. Always great. And of course we know in the diaspora, we like a subset of the whole. Would you say then that lack of information would have caused us to be operating, as they would say, like shaft blowing in the wind? Because then if you are informed, imagine I come from a generation of queens and king, my mother or whoever, you know, based on the family structure I come from, I would move a particular way. You think it's a lack of education, more so in the school system?
Definitely is. You know, in each of the books that I've wrote, Black Studies, Knowledge is Power, and even Black Youth at Risk, which focuses on the male, we have dedicated much material to educating about the greatness of the black woman. Within recent times by itself, there are so many magnificent black women whose biographies need to be taught, and I'll just name about 5 or 6, starting with Sojourner Truth, who was a writer, a black woman who was a genius, but who fought against the system. She was the first black woman to win a slander libel case against a white person when it was a time where anything could be said or written about black people. Harriet Tubman, as a
yes.
black woman, led so many men to their freedom.
Yes.
And, you know, that cliched statement that they attribute to her is that she freed hundreds of slaves, and she would have freed so many more, even if they knew they were slaves. Men who were too scared to run to their freedom. She held them at gunpoint, including a husband. She freed her own parents to freedom.
And you know, we could take that, David, because we just have about 3 more minutes to wrap up. We could take that and bring it in a sense where even in society today, some African people have the opportunity to free themselves from a lot of bondage, and they're not running to freedom.
Yeah.
You have to literally hold them and shake them to consciousness. Get out of it. You know, I like that. That happened in the
spirit of Rosa Parks.
Yes.
You know, it was her courage that allowed us to know who Dr. Martin Luther King is. But just very quickly, just to mention a few others, Madam C.J. Walker, who was the first female millionaire in America, black woman who started making hair care products. You had Ida B. Wells, who started a school with 5 or 6 students, berries for ink, and then went on to open multiple schools with thousands of students. But coming back home to where we would have started, Trinidad and Tobago. A great black woman who is hardly even heard of from Trinidad is Hazel Scott. Hazel Scott was a jazz pianist who used to play classical music. Some saw as a classical pianist who used to play jazz music. Hazel Scott went to America, was a prodigy, musical genius, but she also became an actor. And she refused defiantly to take up degenerate roles of black women. Hazel Scott was actually the first black woman in America 30 years before Oprah Winfrey to have her own television show, the Hazel Scott Show. Trinidadian woman, Hazel Scott. And even Pearl Marshall, the story of Pearl Marshall is so spectacular.
Yes.
Because Pearl Marshall was the first black queen of carnival. JC's queen of carnival. There's a white woman in Marion, half-eyed. You know, and it was considered a bad thing to have a black woman as the queen of carnival. But she went on to become a flight attendant, and she was Trinidadian, the first black woman to be a flight attendant on a transatlantic flight. She landed in the New York airport before it was named after JFK. This would have been 1957. And 2,000 admiring black people in New York came to greet her at the airport as the first black woman to make that step. We have people like Beryl McBurney and Pearl Primus as well, who have revolutionized dance and choreography globally. Audrey Jeffers, who was she was a politician. Well, I wouldn't describe her as a politician, but she basically started the breakfast shed. But what we know today as school feeding programs and, you know, care for soldiers who had come back from the war, children who don't have anything to eat to go to school, you know, all of these, who we named the highway after.
Yes, that the foreshore, what we call the foreshore there by the stadium.
Yeah, the Audrey Jeffers Highway. And I mean, Elma Francois, who was actually born in St. Vincent, but they actually named the library in Cipriani Labor College after her. She was the leader of the Negro Women's Association in the 1930s, a colleague of Uraba's Butler, and again on the forefront. And you have had so many great black women coming out of Trinidad and the Western Hemisphere. Now there's a black woman who's the vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris. And of course, the most distinguished first lady that we've ever seen is also a black woman, Michelle Obama, in America. And even Winnie Mandela, whose husband became famous for a struggle that she sustained while her husband, Nelson Mandela, was in prison for 27 years. I was blessed to be on the security team and to be the driver for
Wow.
Winnie Mandela
Well,
in 1998 when she was here.
When Nelson Mandela visited Trinidad, I
Yeah.
was working at the airport then, and I was blessed to see him in the flesh. I will never forget that. When I saw the figure emerging from the plane, but listen to me, there's
I was right there at the bottom of the steps when he came off the plane.
Goosebumps, the tall
Yeah.
figure, wow. David, in closing quickly,
Yeah.
what do you have to tell the African women of Trinidad and Tobago as we prepare to celebrate emancipation on Sunday? You know, give them some words to go forward with, touch the soul and the spirit to encourage them.
Well, to all of our sisters, the African women, we want to express gratitude for having carried us during the 400 years of the enslavement of our enemies, when the man had fallen down and was battered, bruised, used, abused, and misused. It was the black woman who was still there, demonstrating a strength that is unparalleled by any human community. We owe a debt of gratitude to our African women, and each of us must pledge in the future that regardless of whatever circumstances we find ourselves in, regardless of what situation we're in, that we maintain our respect, our dignity, and our honor of the black woman, and that we take our time to find out about many of the great accomplishments and achievements of our women. I'd just like to say that on Emancipation Day, of course, we don't have
the parade and all that,
but
yes.
I will be at the Kwame Ture Center. We're hosting a book sale, 50% off
That's
all of
Sunday
our books.
here.
Yep, Sunday at the Kwame Ture Center in Success Laventille from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. We also have some free giveaways. We did a Zoom conference with the students at the Kwame Ture Center on Friday night, and all the students who were online, we're giving them a free copy of the book, which is about 40 students who were on that particular class. So that's at the Kwame Ture Center on Sunday.
That's
from 1
in
to 5.
Success, their Success
Yeah,
Laventille.
right on the Eastern Main
Where
Road. But
CGA
Eastern Main Road
used to
splits.
be.
Yes, right opposite CJ, opposite the school.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you have it. You know, listen, I think this was the quickest hour. I just get so relaxed, soaking up everything, you know. This was the quickest hour. Trinidad and Tobago, happy emancipation, and a special emancipation to my African sisters. Listen to me. If you have to dress up and wear your clothes home, do that. You enjoy yourself Sunday. Of course, you know, that is just the tip of the iceberg. The real celebration is in here. Freedom of self. Free in your spirit to be your true self. And we have a lot of work to do, bit by bit. We have a lot of work to do, step by step. We have to support our African brothers and they to support us. It ain't gonna happen overnight, but listen, we will get there. So, I am Empress Aje, your host. You can find me on Facebook as Empress Aje, on YouTube as Empress Aje, and on IG as Empress Aje. And this Sunday, I'm launching, or I am, as they say, I'm dropping my single, Come Ancestors. I cannot wait. I am releasing new music, Emancipation Day, this Sunday. Stay tuned. Yeah, we must pay homage to those who went before. So again, enjoy the rest of your Friday evening. On behalf of Gael, we are saying stay safe and see you next time on The Feminine Drive.